I do want to offer what the prosecutor was saying because I want to be fair to these two young boys. She pointed out that it was November 2024 when the doctor first raised concerns of abuse. What we know from the police complaint is that the parents had heard that Timothy Busfield had a history of being inappropriate with underaged women. And that prompted them to start asking questions, which eventually brought them into the medical center with their boys. The doctor interviewed the boys, and the doctor, based on his interview with the boys, said they need to be evaluated for potential child sexual abuse. The police interviewed them. You heard the excerpts of the boys saying, no, he didn't touch me. And then I gave the chronology of what happened after there. They've started getting therapy. The therapist said the one boy allegedly was having nightmares. It came out that court hearing yesterday that allegedly, according to the defense, the boy had told the therapist he was just waking up several times in the middle of the night because he was hot or cold, I think hot. And the father was the one who said he's having nightmares. So the defense is suggesting the dad's trying to like layer up the kid's injuries. And the suggestion is that they're fake. I don't know what's true. But in any event, the contact with the therapist went on, and ultimately the therapist said that the boys changed their story and that the one said he had been physically touched, inappropriately. His genitals had been touched by Timothy Busfield, and the other brother did not go that far, which, I did think the prosecutor raised several times yesterday that that's actually inures to their benefit. If this was just some money grab, two's better than one. You get paid higher if both boys have been molested, and they did not allege that. The one boy whose name begins with a V said it didn't go that far. The one boy whose name begins with an S said indeed it did, and that Timothy Busfield molested him by touching, forgive me, his penis and his bottom. They went on to say it's normal for children to deny it. And the questions asked, she said, by that first police officer did not comply with best practices. She said the kids continued to show signs of abuse and continued to disclose they should not be tarred with their parents' past. She said it's very difficult to coach children at that age. And even though they gave, even though it's tough to coach children, she said they managed to actually come out and tell their stories, and they gave details. And then she points to, then she says the therapists know about coaching. She would have put that in her note. She didn't. Same with the doctor. Doctors know about coaching. He would have put that in his note. These are people who know these boys, who have spent many hours with them. In the case of the therapist, they did not sense coaching. They thought that these were real complaints. And then she got into defendant's admission. Timothy Busfield admitted, and I pulled back up the police complaint. According to the police, he admitted the following. He writes, I did ask Timothy if he ever had any physical contact with these boys and if he ever picked them up and tickled them. Timothy said it was highly likely that he would have. Timothy said it was a playful environment like he wanted. And I'm sorry, right there. This is why I'm not ready to completely rule him out despite these weird parents. I know if I ever said to you, Dave Aronberg, did you ever pick up somebody else's boy in a professional setting and tickle him? You easily would say, hell no. Every man knows not to do that, whether he's directing them in a film or not. It's a very strange answer. Can we agree on that?
Yes. He's 68 years old, so he's a little different generation than, but I don't know anyone who just does that normally. And anyone who did, maybe that was like 3 generations prior where that was okay. It's not okay. It hasn't been okay for a long time. Also, it is true that when he was accused of improper conduct, they were not children, they were teenagers, but he did pay out $150,000 to a 17-year-old girl. It was relating to costs and fees after an unsuccessful countersuit. But there is some past conduct here that could become relevant in a trial where they could bring it up as what's called Williams rule in Florida. Every state has it, where it doesn't have to be a conviction. It just can be if it's like his MO, a pattern of conduct. And so that's where it could come back to hurt him. So it is a messy case, Megyn, but our conversation here, it by no means means that he is not guilty of this. We just don't know. And the fact that it's messy makes it harder for prosecutors.
Yeah. I mean, well, my my obligation as a reporter is to bring the audience updated information when I get it. And this is certainly worth them considering in deciding what they think of this case. Here's the other thing from the police affidavit. He says, Timothy then stated, I don't remember those boys. No, I don't. I don't actually. I don't remember if it happened. I don't remember overtly tickling the boys ever, but it wouldn't be uncommon for me. So now he's gone from, he's directed them in his show for 2.5 years and had social engagements with them. And Melissa's bought them presents to, and I probably did. It's highly likely that I tickled them to, I don't remember them. What boys? Okay. That too is highly sketchy. And then I do want to get into the other alleged incidents of abuse. And tell me what you think, Mike Davis, because what we learned is that Mike mentions there was a 17-year-old girl who accused him of molesting her physically and sexually in some way. And she sued him and he countersued. He sued her law firm because they were trying to get $150,000 in fees and costs. And he lost. He said that they had defamed him. And he lost that defamation claim. He did have to pay the money, and he settled with the 17-year-old. Okay, we don't really know much about that. Maybe it was a money grab. I don't know. Then there was a 28-year-old who alleges that they went out to a movie together and that in the movie theater, he took what was a kiss and turned it into a physical sexual assault, shoving his hands down her pants, grabbing her genitals. She was like squirming to get away from him. She wanted nothing to do with him, to the point where she went to the police. Okay, the police said, we can't really make anything out of this because it's like he said, she said, and you were on a date with him, something to that effect. That's a lot. I mean, I don't, like, the average guy doesn't have somebody turning like a movie kiss into something that results in a phone call to the cops, but there's that one. Then there is this other report that they raised. There are two other reports. One is like from an assistant who worked for both Melissa and Timothy recently that suggests he's kind of a douchebag. But then there was a new one by name by an actress named Claudia Christian, who is out there. Actually, I Googled her, and if you look at her face, she looks kind of familiar. I think she's a fairly successful like character actress, who back in 1991, I think it was, because that's when they started a movie together. She and Timothy Busfield were working together. Alleges that when she was 16, he came for her too. Here's the prosecutor describing those other two incidents. SOT 48.
State's Exhibit 5 is from the defendant and his wife's personal assistant. They worked, I believe, through the May of 2017 until 2019. And she mostly describes how the defendant was inappropriate, intimidating, that there was a lot of, this position of authority that we've kind of seen play out in this case and all of the other victims that have come forward, and had made comments to her about the way she acted and that he might have a crush on her if she continues that behavior. So there was concerns of inappropriate conduct with her as well. State 6, Claudia Christian, who is an actress. She has reported that when they were filming The Strays, the defendant and her, she was already casted as an actress. And during the show, they were running lines, which was common, and they went to his trailer. She stated that once she got there, he was alone, and almost immediately after she entered his trailer, he forcibly grabbed her and threw her against the wall, and started kissing her, and he had an erection.
Okay, so that's Claudia Christian, who went on the record apparently with the prosecutor. Would have been 1991. By my math, she would have been 26 when that happened to her. So we've got a 28-year-old on a date. We've got a 26-year-old on set with him. We've got a 17-year-old who he accused of defaming him when she accused him, and instead he had to settle that case and pay her lawyers $150,000. And then there's a 16-year-old girl who's come forward as well. She was 16 when this happened to her, who claims he molested her when she was auditioning at his children's theater. And it was so significant. Hold on a second. I have the allegations here. In a 7-page filing, New Mexico prosecutor said the law enforcement official, they received a report Tuesday from her father, who said Busfield kissed his 16-year-old daughter and touched her intimate parts several years ago, and that when the father went to him, Busfield, quote, begged the family to hold off on reporting the alleged misconduct to the police if Busfield got therapy. The father was himself a therapist and so agreed to that. So that's a 16-year-old girl whose dad is on the record. It's a 17-year-old girl who got a settlement and her lawyers did too. It's a 28-year-old girl who said she was on a date. This happened to her in a movie theater. And then there is Claudia Christian, who I guess would have been 26 when she says she went into his trailer. He molested her, threw her against the wall, and started grabbing her. Okay, that's 4. Payouts in a couple of them. One case, and agreed therapy that he got. And now we have these boys. So all of this, look, has me, I got the same questions you guys have about these parents, but Timothy Busfield is a creep. And Melissa Gilbert is gross too, because this whole thing started for me because she was out there trying to suggest that I downplayed the abuse of women because I was making the distinction about whether Jeffrey Epstein technically legally qualified as a pedophile if his thing was 15-year-olds versus if it were, 5-year-olds. And legally, that definition only applies to an attraction to prepubescent girls. Meanwhile, she knows full well her husband was out there allegedly molesting a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 26-year-old, a 28-year-old, and she's out there trying to cloak herself in this sort of moral, glory, when she knows full well that he's done all those things, or at least settled the cases. And on top of that, when she's doing it, knew he'd been accused by these 7-year-old boys. They're now 11, but the abuse allegedly happened between 7 and 9. All of it speaks to her and her husband's disgusting hypocrisy, but it also could be pattern evidence, Mike Davis, that potentially could get admitted, some of those claims.
Yeah, I mean, generally under our criminal procedures, you cannot bring in propensity evidence, meaning you can't, if someone robs a bank, you can't bring in prior bank robberies to show that they are likely to, or they have a disposition to rob banks. That is generally not permitted. But as Dave talked about, you have MO evidence or modus operandi evidence. If you show that you rob banks wearing a clown outfit, you can bring that in generally under MO evidence. That's not propensity evidence. That shows that's how you go about doing these bank robberies. That's and so it's it shows evidence that you committed this bank robbery. So the distinction between propensity and MO evidence. Generally with sex crimes, and I think this would apply in New Mexico. I'm not licensed in New Mexico, but I think the same rule applies in New Mexico. With sex crimes, you can bring in propensity evidence. This would all get admitted, or it probably would get admitted if this case goes to trial, and it would be very damning for him if the jury heard this evidence.
Go ahead, Megyn, Dave. This is the key to the case. It's whether you can bring in that MO evidence, the prior bad acts. It does not bode well for the prosecution when you look at the words from Judge Murphy when he ordered Busfield's release. If you look at his order, he said this: there is no evidence of a pattern of criminal conduct. There are no similar allegations involving children in his past. So that tells me, at least for now, that the judge is skeptical of the prosecution's pattern argument, that he is separating.
Well, but also he did say, I mean, I listened to the whole hearing, and what he said was that have been tested in a legal forum. Like he's talking about no criminal convictions with respect to these other women.
Well, if he was only talking about convictions, then that is good for the prosecution, because you don't have to have a conviction to bring in past bad acts. But it did seem like he was differentiating, as you did in that whole Epstein controversy, between a young child, a 7-year-old, and in this case, a 17 or 16-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, Doug and I were laughing because the irony of Melissa Gilbert's attack on me is she should have been leaning into that defense. She should have been like, yeah, there's a big difference between the teenagers and the young ones, because of course that's what her lawyers are going to argue on Timothy Busfield's behalf, and trying to keep all this evidence of him molesting teenagers and women in their 20s out of the jury's purview. But unlike Timothy Busfield, I actually do think there's a serious problem in molesting 15-year-olds. I just didn't think it legally qualifies as pedophilia, which is true. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to somebody from Birch Gold Group? You know, you've been thinking about it. They use an educated approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower right now and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you are a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, just text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate of up to $10,000 when you buy by January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 and claim your eligibility today. Again, text MK to 989898 now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.